Welcome to the Farming Your Career podcast with host Dr. Aaron L. Albert, where we explore a variety of healthcare and pharmacy-related topics, including career development, healthcare IT, informatics, innovation, entrepreneurship, STEM, women's issues, and more. Farming Your Career podcast is part of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, and Aaron has had the #1 most downloaded episodes of 2016 and 2017 of the entire Pharmacy Podcast Network. Now, here's your host, Dr. Aaron L. Albert.
Welcome to Farming Your Career. I'm Aaron Albert. This week's guest is one of our SWEs, or Single Women Entrepreneurs, from my new book, Single Women Entrepreneurs 5 Years Later. Her name is Andrea Bloom, and she's the founder and CEO of a company called ConnectWell, which is a leading provider of digital health and wellness content. She's a seasoned executive with over 25 years of business experience, including 20 years in the healthcare industry in various product development, marketing, international, business development, and consulting roles. She transferred her broad healthcare experience to found, lead, and build the ConnectWell team, offering a public-private partnership with the UC Berkeley School of Public Health. And she'll share more on that in our interview. She's also a sought-out innovator in wellness and has spoken at several different healthcare conferences, HR conferences, and at Stanford and UC Berkeley business schools. Andrea received a Bachelor of Arts in Economics from the University of California, Berkeley, with departmental honors, high distinction in general scholarship, and Phi Beta Kappa, and a Master in Business Administration from Harvard Business School. Welcome to Andrea Bloom. So we're here today with one of the brave women who not only participated in Single Women Entrepreneurs, my book on women entrepreneurs, but also the brand new follow-up book called Single Women Entrepreneurs 5 Years Later. And because she has a business in the healthcare and wellness space, we wanted to invite her on the podcast to share her story. So with that, Andrea, welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast.
Thank you, Aaron.
So let's start with the same question I ask all the guests. How did you get to where you are today in your career?
Great. Well, that's a great question, which really takes me back to my childhood, because I come from a family of physicians and healthcare professionals. And I guess because of that, you'd say I'm sort of in the family business. As a child, I grew up basically in healthcare, hearing about all sorts of healthcare issues and conditions. And so it was natural for me to be pre-med while I was an undergraduate at UC Berkeley. But I decided not to pursue a career as a physician. I did major in economics, and I worked in, after I graduated, I worked as a research associate at a economic consulting firm, and then I went on to business school. I received my MBA at Harvard, and while I was there, I landed a summer internship at a small healthcare management practice software company. And so that's when I decided I really wanted a career in healthcare. And then after graduating, I came back to the Bay Area and I joined LifeScan, which is a Johnson & Johnson company focused on diabetes. So basically, for the last 25 years, I've been in the healthcare industry, and because I was focused on diabetes at LifeScan, I really understood the disease in detail, how people got the disease, the differences between type 1, type 2, how pharmacists worked with the patients and the endocrinologists and the diabetes educators. So I really got a really deep understanding of diabetes, and I was at LifeScan for about 10 years. After that, I expanded beyond just the diabetes industry, and I started consulting to other medical device companies across different disease states. I guess you'd say that was my first venture into entrepreneurship, which was starting a consulting practice, a healthcare consulting practice. And while I was doing that, I had the freedom to do other things as well. One of those things was as I joined the Institute for the Future which is a Palo Alto think tank, and I contributed to their research on healthcare and well-being. And that also expanded my view of sort of the healthcare landscape. And I also had the opportunity to be in an immersive experience by attending Bearskin Meadow Diabetes Camp as an observer to help bring new product ideas to people in the diabetes industry. So I'd say all of these experiences really helped form my view of healthcare and health and well-being, which helped me sort of arrive and wanted to found the business I founded, ConnectWell.
Yeah. So again, the name of your business is ConnectWell. So why did you start it, and what specifically do you do?
Okay, great. So while I was expanding my knowledge base in healthcare while working across multiple disease states, and particularly when I had that immersive experience at Bearskin Meadow Diabetes Camp, I kind of had my aha moment, which was people with type 1 diabetes, when they're really well controlled, and people with type 1 diabetes get their condition very early in their life, mostly as children. So they have to learn how to take care of themselves. And when they take care of themselves really well, they actually have very good outcomes. They live a healthy, long life. So that was kind of my aha moment, because the other flip side of diabetes is type 2 diabetes that people get because they are not practicing living a healthy life, eating well. They're not eating well, and they're not getting enough physical activity. So that's when I had my aha moment, was that, wow, we need to teach people much earlier in their life how to take care of themselves so they don't need to get these chronic preventable diseases. So really that's why I founded ConnectWell, was to create wellness programming so people could learn these healthy lifestyle practices and live well. And the idea is that most people in America get their health care coverage through their employer. So we felt it was the employer's role to provide wellness programming and services as a work benefit. And so that's why I founded ConnectWell, because I saw the need to help people learn these healthy lifestyle practices, and that it would be a benefit for people to receive through their employer.
Great. So can you talk a little bit more about your partnerships within your business and who specifically you work with?
Okay, terrific. Well, our business has evolved. So originally we were developing wellness programming and services specific to work sites. And we created wellness programming and sort of healthy lifestyle practice content areas. And then more recently, we formed a public-private partnership with the School of Public Health at UC Berkeley so we could digitize their vast collection of health and wellness content and scale it through digital health and bring it to many more entities. So we've become a health and wellness content provider by blending ConnectWell's suite of wellness initiatives with the UC Berkeley School of Public's condition content areas. So we have a full suite of health content. And now with the advent of digital health, we license our content for use through digital health platforms such as healthcare systems, health coaching companies, employers, pharmacies, wearable device companies, basically any type of provider that's offering health services, we integrate with them to engage their population in healthy lifestyle practices and managing their condition.
Excellent. So let's spin the conversation a little bit over to the area of entrepreneurship, because you and I share that passion. So why did you decide to participate originally in Single Women Entrepreneurs and then in the new follow-up book?
Great question. So really, I wanted to share my own experience and help other people take the leap into a career in entrepreneurship. It takes a lot of courage to do this because typically people are leaving a very stable corporate situation and they're going into the area of the unknown. So I wanted to help people see how they could build this skill set and transition successfully to a career in entrepreneurship and show them how exciting it is and how kind of empowering it is to do that. I feel like nothing holds you back when you're an entrepreneur except yourself. But there could be all these limits and barriers in a typical corporate job. So that's what I wanted to show people, the potential of a career as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and you made some interesting comments, particularly in your follow-up interview about, well, first, let's focus on the health and wellness portion. You had traveled recently when we conducted that interview, and you shared how families in other countries live healthier and more as a unit. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that plays very well into the concept around your business.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, so we were traveling, and it was just so interesting. When we were in Eastern Europe, we were learning how the different generations live together and support each other. And part of the living together piece is because they have economic constraints there. So the sort of the grandparents are funding the housing for their children, and they're also able to take care of their grandchildren while their children are working, and then the children actually provide the income for the family to live. So they were forced to live together because of these economic conditions, but because of it, they actually had sort of better wellness outcomes because the grandparents had time to shop and cook fresh food every day. Most people were not eating out. The obesity rates were much lower, and then they were also providing childcare. And so there was this nice blend of people living together, but seeing how together they could help support each other in healthier living. And I think socially they were happier too because they were more connected.
Yeah, I mean, isolation seems to be a huge challenge in the first world here. What other, I guess, trends generically or generally are you seeing in healthcare and wellness to help people live better lives, being and playing in that wellness space with your business?
Yeah. So I think first of all, there's so much awareness about wellness and health and why it's important to take care of ourselves. So there's no doubt that people have bought into this concept, and there's so much science out there that's showing us the reasons why. And now, because of the advent of digital healthcare was very slow to come into the technology age, but it has arrived. And now that people can access healthcare services, they can access their health records, they can get coached, telephonically, even through their phone, that there's so many other ways to access health and wellness services. So I think that's what's really driving the availability of this. And there's so many companies out there now delivering very innovative services direct to people anywhere, anytime.
Yeah, I think it was just this week that a lot of physicians in California now are prescribing food for their patients. And so what other kind of corporate wellness initiatives, kind of zeitgeist, cutting edge things are you seeing out there relative to the healthcare benefit for employees? And where do you see that trend kind of moving forward? Because the argument has always been, well, I'm an employer, I'm going to give them healthcare benefits as employees, but the trade-off to provide wellness benefits doesn't show up until several years later, right? So what trends are you seeing around wellness?
Okay, so actually I just gave a talk at a language conference for their employers in the language conference industry because they feel that wellness is important for their employees. And we did talk about this because wellness is actually, it's a key benefit now. It's not seen as discretionary anymore. And so that's really changed. It's really part of a standard employee benefit package. And although you may have the return on investment a few years later, there's other, in terms of reduction in healthcare costs, there's other ways to reap the benefits now. And it's because people are more engaged at work when they're healthier and they're happier and when they feel their employer cares about them. And that delivers significant returns to the company and just engagement, innovation, loyalty, all sorts of things. So that's really the driver now, is that these companies see the benefit that it delivers in terms of employee engagement, loyalty, and innovation.
That's awesome. And so our audience, of course, and obviously are pharmacists and people in the pharmaceutical industry, healthcare professionals. So I know pharmacy itself is undergoing this revolution where we're going to have actually an oversupply or overabundance of pharmacists. They're now saying the statistics are going to be around 50,000 in surplus by about 2025. So help enlighten our audience on how our pharmacy folks can get involved in wellness and well-being as part of the profession of pharmacy moving forward.
Great question. Well, I believe that pharmacists have a key role to play in helping people manage their chronic conditions. And I mean, the statistics are staggering that 50% of Americans are living with one chronic condition. A third are living with two or more chronic conditions. And the pharmacist interacts with the patient quite regularly. When the patient comes to pick up their medicines, the pharmacist can make sure, first of all, that they're taking their medicines correctly, because we all know that medication compliance is a significant problem. And then beyond that is helping patients with other aspects of their disease and helping them manage that. So I think that's a key role that the pharmacists can play, because the pharmacists are very well educated on these diseases and then how to manage it beyond the medication. I think that could be a way for the pharmacist to get involved and helping then the patient, the customer, purchase other things while they're at the pharmacy to help them with their chronic condition. I think that would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, and we have other podcast hosts here at the Pharmacy Podcast who focus on fitness and wellness as well, and integrate those into their practices. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity there. And to your point, I think with the attention of public health and food as medicine and functional medicine now, I think that arena is only going to grow. And the entrepreneurial pharmacist will seize upon that. So let's say you have that aspiring entrepreneur in front of you, particularly a single woman. What advice do you have for her?
Okay, the first advice I have for her is that she should acquire as many skills as she can in her current job. And if she's considering staying at her current company, she should think about the next role she should take on so she can get more skills before she enters into her entrepreneurial career path. The other way to get skills is to, while you're at your job, is to try to attend as many meetings, conferences, and events where you can get more broad exposure and increase your network. I got to say, networking is so important, and it's building that network in the area that you want to start your business, because you're going to be tapping into that very regularly. The other area is really to become a subject matter expert, and I'm going to have to say it, in an area that you're passionate about. It can be very hard at times as an entrepreneur, just dealing with all the various challenges. And so your passion for your work is going to carry you through those difficult times. So you must be passionate, and I'd say becoming a a subject matter expert is going to give you that credibility when you launch your entrepreneurial career to get people to buy into your concept and your company.
Yeah, that's great advice. And one of the comments that you made on Single Women Entrepreneurs 5 years later that I wanted to go back to relative to entrepreneurship is we oftentimes think of entrepreneurs as the hoodie wearing 20-something, very young entrepreneurs, the people that are coming right out of college, or maybe they dropped out of college, the Mark Zuckerbergs. But you made a really interesting comment in Single Women Entrepreneurs 5 years later in talking about the benefits of starting as an entrepreneur later in your career. Can you expound upon that a little bit and share the benefits that you've seen in starting your business maybe a little bit later in your career?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so funny. I think that is the stereotype of the entrepreneur, and I think that some of those people who start really early, I mean, they're sort of highly unusual that they're able to achieve that kind of entrepreneurial success with so little business experience. So I think it's really nice to go out into the workforce, even work at a big company. I worked at the largest healthcare company, Johnson & Johnson, and I got really a very strong foundation in terms of product development. How do you bring a healthcare product to market? How do you navigate the inner workings of a large company? And of course, getting exposed to Johnson & Johnson marketing and how do they market. So it was an excellent foundation. And so I think it's very helpful to get that solid experience and then again that subject matter expertise so that you can found a company when you have a really solid total background in both experience and subject matter to have the credibility and then the skills inside of you to do multiple functions inside your startup.
Yeah, and you made a comment about generational work and discrimination potentially and how entrepreneurship later in your career could actually insulate you from that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I do, because I think this is a key insight that I've just recognized recently. So this was definitely not on the radar for me when I founded ConnectWell, and I founded the company when I was in my early 40s, and now I'm in my early 50s. And so what I see in terms of what's happening in the corporate job market right now, that my friends who are basically in my similar age range, a lot of them are losing their jobs through layoffs or restructuring. And it seems to be that more of the older workers, and I wouldn't even consider myself old, and this is sort of what's scary about what's happening, is that you seem older if you're even past 45, and people in that age range and above are at risk of losing their jobs. And then when they go out into the workforce, they have a harder time getting those jobs because they seem too experienced, which often means expensive, right? Mm-hmm. Expensive to hire on. And it's so concerning because, the great thing about health and wellness today is that we're extending our life expectancy. So we all should be really happy about that. And because of that, we need to work longer to sustain ourselves and our are the last part of our life. So people really need to work longer. Their retirement's being pushed out. And I just see this as a big problem for our society that, people past 45, you're really in your prime at that time. And that's the group that is having a hard time redeploying themselves in the workforce. So getting back to your question, Erin, how does entrepreneurship fit into that? I think it's a great sort of insurance policy for yourself is to become an entrepreneur, in that 45 plus time period of your career because you can employ yourself. And in fact, as an entrepreneur, age is an asset. Age and experience is an asset because you need that to make your business successful. And then the clients and customers you work with, they don't care about your age. in fact, they see it as experience. So it's all very positive. So I think this is going to be a trend that we're going to see, that you will see more entrepreneurs in that age group, and it's a way for them to extend their careers over their lifespan so they can have interesting high impact work and also sustain themselves financially, because many more people are living beyond 100 now, and so we need to be able to finance that.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, the workplace has changed. We're moving towards the gig economy. We've had several episodes here at the Pharmacy Podcast about, side gigs, side hustles, doing something else on the side of your very own, or having even a portfolio career, having many things going on simultaneously. And the trend with, the concept that you've just talked about, retirepreneurs, these folks that are making the transition to entrepreneurship, either out of necessity or for want of moving out of corporate America. I think I really appreciated that insight that you gave to the book, because you were the only one that really talked about that. And I think that is definitely a trend that we're going to see moving forward. So I want to go back to healthcare before we end today. And so what one word, Andrea, would you use to describe the U.S. healthcare system? And what one word would you want to have as the ideal U.S. healthcare system to be described as?
Well, that's a really good question to end on, because, as we know, we spend more on healthcare in the United States than any other country, yet we're not seeing, the sort of the comparable quality benefits that you would think would go along with the costs that we're spending. And so the word I would use is that we have a fragmented healthcare system. And I think that's one of the key problems with our costs and with not achieving the kind of outcomes we'd like to see. And what I think the ideal would be is to have a connected healthcare system where people could connect easily to the healthcare system, where all the pieces work together, people get coordinated care, wellness is part of healthcare. And we could sort of, with a connected system, we'd have a more efficient, cost-effective system, and we'd have improved outcomes and well-being.
Completely agree. So with that, Andrea Bloom, where can people connect with you that you'd like to connect? There's so many platforms out there, and tell us where we can learn more about ConnectWell.
Terrific. Well, please come visit us at www.connectwell.biz. That's where you can learn all about our services and about our public-private partnership with the School of Public Health at UC Berkeley, and see what kind of content offering we have. And then there's a place on the site where you can click and connect and send us an email. So we look forward to hearing from you and hope that we can help you all with your health and wellness.
Well, with that, Andrea, I wanted to personally thank you for being one of the brave women to share your story, not only once, but twice in both Single Women Entrepreneurs books. With that, thanks as well for sharing your story here at the Pharmacy Podcast. We definitely wanted to bring your story in particular because you're focused in the healthcare and wellness space. So thank you so much for your insights. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Erin.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Farming Your Career. I'm Erin Albert. We're so appreciative of Andrea Bloom's insights today. She had some fascinating comments both on how other countries and families live, in addition to the coming phenomenon, the sea change of the baby boomers retiring and what's happening to their career development, along with this coming sea change of hopefully more retirepreneurship, where people later in their careers are making the transition from the corporate day jobs into more entrepreneurial behaviors and companies. By the way, this episode is sponsored by my new book, Single Women Entrepreneurs. You can head on over to my website, erinalbert.com, and click on my store to get a copy in hard copy format of the new book. Or, of course, you can head to Amazon.com for a digital Kindle version of the new book as well. I hope this was helpful to you. Please check out the show notes to learn more about Andrea and ConnectWell. And until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Farming Your Career Podcast, part of the Pharmacy Podcast Network. If you have ideas or comments for Erin, be sure to contact her through Twitter. Follow her at Erin L. Albert. And remember to keep your career growing.